Hey there, today we're going to be learning about Angular services, and we're going to do that through making an HTTP proxy service. For today's exercise, you'll want to install Node.js, Visual Studio Code, and .NET 5.0, links in the description below. To bootstrap our effort, we're going to be leveraging code from previous exercises. We're going to clone down this Angular code here, and we're going to clone down the Web API code here. We'll start by pulling down the Web API code. We'll do that in a playground directory like we always do. And then we can navigate into that like that. We'll open that up in Visual Studio Code. To simplify interactions with the different applications in play here, we're going to open up the CORS policy, and we're going to remove the defaulted behavior of HTTPS redirection. This is not a claim of best practices, but more to separate concerns for learning objectives. Navigate to startup. And in here, we're going to do a few things. We're going to go down to line 50. We're going to remove this code. We're going to go up to the top. We're going to make sure that we have a specific using header that I want, using declaration. So Microsoft.net.http.headers. All right, now in configure services, we're going to add some code to add CORS with options. I'm going to add an options default policy. And within that, we're going to have a builder that says, hey, we're going to allow any origin. We're going to allow any header. And we're going to allow any method. And once again, this is just that the objective today is not to learn CORS, but instead to learn interaction between the two applications. CORS absolutely has a place, and we should talk about that another time. And finally, over here, we're going to add app.useCORS. Because we have the defaulted policy here, that's going to immediately be applied here. All right, we accomplished our objective. Now we can go back to the terminal and build it. And quickly fixing a couple of missed semicolons. Run .NET build. Now I can run .NET run. And our application's running. Let's open another instance of the terminal, and let's clone down our Angular code. In our playground, cloning it down. Let's navigate into it. npm install to install the dependencies. Then we'll open up code and we'll serve it. npm install finished, so I got my dependencies. Then I ran ng-serve, proved that it builds. Next, we can generate a service. Let's do that. ng generate service, and we'll call it proxy because it's a proxy service. Cool. Now we'll navigate to Visual Studio Code and play with that. The new service isn't defaulted into the app module, so we'll have to add it here. We'll do that in providers, so it's a service, and we will add proxy service, which is the name of the generated class. If I use type ahead here, it will auto add this import statement, but you want to make sure that's there. While we're in here, we're also we're aware we're going to use HTTP client, so we're going to pull in, not in declarations, in imports. We're going to add a HTTP client module. And if it doesn't auto add that, it doesn't want to this time, we can import that at the top. That hides in Angular common HTTP. And it's all happy now. Now let's navigate to our new service. Looks like this. Super easy. We're going to, in the constructor, utilize that HTTP client module we just added. We're going to add HTTP client here in the constructor. So that's going to be, I'm going to call it HTTP, but it's an HTTP client. And if I press enter again, it does the import at the top for me, which is good. And then we should have that injected on startup. We should be able to see this now readily available once we knew of our class. All right. So the next thing is we're going to add a new function. I'm going to say get message of the day, and this is going to call that HTTP client. It's going to call the other application. So this we're going to start by specifying the URL. That's HTTP localhost 5000. And the method that we're going to want to call, the endpoint, sorry, that we're going to want to call is API non-zero message of the day. Then we're going to use this.http.get. I'm going to pass that URL, and we want the response type to be text. We know that text is the response type that we previously specified when we made that application, when we made the .NET APIs. Cool. Now this, you might want to extract this URL. You'll probably want to extract to a configuration file. That's a story for another time. But for now, we can just hard code it here. It's just not best practice to do so. Additional note, this get actually returns an observable. So that allows for asynchronously that call to occur, and we can then subscribe to the result later. But we should specify that is a best practice, to specify the type here, and then we should be able to import it from RxJS, which is the library that we're using to get that type. Now that we've made our proxy service, let's go and actually apply it. We'll do that in the app component. That's in source app component.typescript. And here we can add a constructor just like we did before in the proxy service. Only this time we'll be passing in the proxy service. And that can be done because we added this in the app.module. Giving a private proxy service, that's excellent. Now, in the constructor method or function itself, we will we'll actually make the call to get message of the day. We probably are going to want to assign the output to something, so we'll create a message of the day string. We'll default to an empty string, but now we can subscribe to the result saying, hey, we're getting some data from this message of the day call, and then have that data be assigned to the message of the day. Cool, so now on construction of our app component, we're going to attempt to call whatever this method does, right, which is we know is an HTTP call. And then we're going to subscribe to the result of that call and assign that to the message of the day local variable. And the next thing we'd want to do is be able to show this message of the day in the app itself, in the component here. And so we'll do that as an H1. It's a very important header. Couple of curly brackets, and in that we'll put message of the day. Let's see what that looks like. If I go back over to the terminal instance, I can run ngserve. That'll host our application. And then we can navigate to localhost 4200, which is where it's going to be hosted. And here's our result. We see no message of the day entered as a large header. And that actually makes sense. So if we go to our localhost 5000, the .NET Web API, and we make a call to that endpoint, we should see no message of the day entered is the result, which matches here. We can also play with this put endpoint that we had created and do something like non-zero days as our string message of the day. And that adjusts this call here. So if we go back to our Angular application and refresh, that too updates. Today we successfully communicated between two applications using HTTP. And we did that through an Angular proxy service. If you have additional time, you might check out the links below, things on .NET Cores or the Angular HTTP client library. If you don't have extra time, congrats on your non-zero day.